Hello everybody, welcome to not another Isekai, and man, we got more anime. It's what we do, we are closing up, say that every week, but this week is for real. This week we're covering the second to last episode for like half the shows, so we're pretty much done, then we can wrap it up. Yeah, and for most of these shows, it definitely does feel like the end of the season. You know, I feel like that's pretty obvious. But there's a lot of these shows that feel like, okay, this is the end. They're kind of gearing up, and a lot of these shows even like sort of end this episode. Like, you know, they do kind of have like, this is it, and then you can tell that next episode is going to be like major setup for whatever the next season is. Many of these shows probably won't get a second season, but some of these I definitely hope will. You know, I hope that they're popular enough. I know that a few of these probably have a good chance. So, yeah, that's that. We'll start with Vinland Saga, Season 2, Episode 23. This was definitely one that I was thinking of when I was saying that, where it's like, this feels like the last episode of the season, and so I definitely think next episode is just gonna be set up, you know, maybe I don't know, maybe like I could even see like a little bit of a time skip, maybe, because like this episode was mostly just Thorfinn confronting Canute and Thorfinn being like, I don't want this, I can't convince you to leave the farm, so I'm gonna do what the only logical thing I can do is, and just run. I'm gonna get away. Which I think is interesting, because on the surface that seems like a very cowardly thing to do, is to run. You know, especially given this idea, this change in character for Thorfinn is what they've been playing with. I feel like the whole season. And so something like this is like, oh, old, I guess, past Thorfinn would have never ran. He probably would have. I mean, he would have done a lot of things differently than new Thorfinn has done in the season. But I feel like in this moment, older Thorfinn probably would have just rushed Canute and tried to kill him. You know. So for him running, I think like it initially looked kind of cowardly. And that is kind of the, like edge in Canute's voice that he kind of gives him when Thorfinn says this. But then it sort of realized that he's grown and he is trying to be above this. Not really in the sense of like, when people act all like, like all like high and mighty and they kind of turn their nose up at people. That's not really what Thorfinn is doing. It is more so just, hey, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. Like the trauma that I have witnessed, that I've been exposed to. I don't want to be a part of it anymore, so I'm going to go find a place that's outside of the king's reach. And, I'm going to create peace there. And then, he is kind of his direct rival in that sense, but they're not approaching it the same way, right? Like, Thorfinn didn't go there and was like, I'm going to build an army and then I'm going to take you down. Like, that's not his approach. He's more so, I'm just going to create a better world. I'm going to, even if it starts off small, I'm going to create this better world for people. And then it's just going to grow. And we're going to force everyone to see that war is never necessary. It's an interesting plan. I don't know if it'll actually work. That's why I definitely feel like next episode could be more of a time skip, not with him succeeding, but more so just him maybe wherever he is. I think him and Einar are probably gonna stay a like duo. They're probably gonna be traveling companions. So I could definitely see a slight time skip. Not not a lot. Not like maybe not as large as this past one was, where it was 5 years, I believe. Oh no, I'm getting that mixed up with something else. So it was a different show, had a 5-year time jump. But I can definitely see something like that. I mean, especially with like the back half of this episode where, definitely felt like somewhat of a montage where it was like, okay, Canute withdrew from the farm, so whatever Thorfinn said there, you definitely didn't get to him. Um, Canute relinquished a large portion of his army. Now the what is it, the English and the Danish, I believe, they do have this sort of like understanding now. Um, so that's bad. Because that kind of worked out for Canute in the long run. Um, and then at the very end, we see Thorfinn and Einar are going to do this for Arnheid. I didn't quite catch this. I didn't know if like Vinland is an actual place. Because they referenced they mentioned Vinland a few times at the very end there. I don't know if that's like a real place or if that's just like an idea. But that is what they're doing for Arnheid. That's kind of what they say at the end. So, again, I think they are going to be traveling companions. I think they're going to try to do this together. Because they both have their own different views on this, right? They both have reasons as to why war is terrible, right? They've been on opposite sides of it, but both did not enjoy the experience. So, yeah. Okay. Um, anyway. Yeah. So there are, they both have their own reasons for this. So, yeah, this definitely felt like a final episode. I'm very interested to see what next episode will be. But, because this one, it ended in a way you didn't really think it was going to, or at least I didn't, right? Like I kind of expected some more fighting to kind of end it, but for them to have their like quote unquote peace talks and for it to kind of work, for Thorfinn to actually, whether he realizes it or not, Canute did withdraw from the farm and said, "Oh, we're not taking any farms," because I guess Canute, what Thorfinn said, I feel like Canute actually does want, but he's over time has just accepted that that's just not going to happen. That's just not the way the world works, right? That it was kind of part of his speech here. Um, so now for Thorfinn, saying it as well and truly believing in it, and then Canute knowing what kind of, at least, what kind of boy Thorfinn was and what kind of man he seems to have grown to be. I think him getting out of the farm, getting rid of some of his army, or like, giving away some of the power with his army, I think that, that was a way for him to almost help and try to take some roadblocks away from Thorfinn. Because at the end of the day, if Thorfinn wins, Canute loses. But I think, in terms of the ideas that Canute had all those years ago, those will succeed, right? So I think he'll fail ultimately as this like tyrant king, but if Thorfinn succeeds and gets like even close to the like peace and prosperity that he's trying to get towards, then I think on the inside Canute wins. Yeah. So we'll see. Like I said, the next episode is the last episode. Again, I don't really know what this is gonna be. I mean, it could just be more kind of wrapping things up. Thorfinn and Einar maybe just heading on their journey. Us really getting a better idea of where they're going, what they're gonna do, if they have a plan. Or maybe there will be some sort of a time skip where they're already there and, they've already kind of started doing, I just don't know how they're going to approach it. Where it's like, where exactly are they going to go? And like, what is their plan? We're just going to build a land of peace. Okay, that seems much, much, much easier said than done. Because in terms of doing, sounds impossible. But we'll see. Next, Hell's Paradise, episode 11. I believe there's either 1 or 2 more episodes left of this. I don't remember. But yeah, this one was cool. We had the yellow brother. Don't remember his name. He was kind of doing things that you shouldn't be able to do as a human. He had his Tao was going crazy. You know, which again, not something a human is really supposed to do. Supposed to have the abilities for. You know, he was reaching past human capability in terms of strength and speed, and he even had like regeneration, all that stuff. But yeah, yes, that was cool, and that was also a very interesting thing to put in here because we saw that it was possible for, you know, it's funny that he, like, finding the secret of the tower or whatever, he was able to do it before Gabimaru. You know, I think it's a very interesting way to, you know, kind of do that because Gabimaru, obviously our main character, you know, but, you know, for him to kind of do it, I don't know, it was just like not expected. And then, you know, to kind of show it from his side too, where, you know, I feel like, you know, because we saw 2 people, right? We saw him, we saw Gabimaru, both kind of learn the ways of the Tao in 2 very different ways, 2 very different approaches. And the brother's way, and definitely his execution, was much more like brutal and much more like, you know, it felt like he was kind of losing himself for the worst. You know, we saw his brother looking at him and like looking at him kind of standing over the Doshi's body, and was like, you know, he had his like a little inner monologue where like, oh man, it's great that he's alive and all that, but kind of seems like he's losing himself. He's kind of turning into a monster, you know. And then the brother, I remember the brother turns his face and he sees his face like all burnt and scarred and stuff for like a half second. And so it's like, what is he becoming? You know, is this like a path of evil, you know, that, you know, that he's found, even though he is a criminal, you know, sent here because he was on death row, I believe. You know, but still, he just kind of, and then we see Gabimaru's side where he's more so doing it to protect people. And, you know, he even talks about in this episode about changing, you know, about how like he's not the same person he was when he stepped on the island. But his change is better, you know, because he's, you know, he's getting more in tune with his emotions, right? He is helping people. You know, he's not just this like stone cold killer. You know, the Gabimaru, the hollow shinobi or whatever, right? Like that's, you know, that's not really who he is anymore. You know, so he's gonna change it for the better. Yeah, which is cool. You know, he's out here protecting May. You know, because May had the whole story about her. You know, she's like cast out or whatever, and you know they're looking for her because she could be the key to a lot of things. But yeah, and then at the end of the day, she's able to help him. The whole like strong, weak, all that stuff is just like you are speaking in riddles. But you know, he was able to understand, and he like mastered the technique. You know, just like that. You know, so it's gonna be interesting. You know, with the humans learning this, and the Tenzin knowing that they're here, knowing, I mean, I'm sure at some point they're gonna know that they're coming. Oh man, we're sending a bunch of doshi out and they're not returning. we can't sense their life anymore. It's gonna be an interesting fight, I think, because you know they're kind of building this up that Gabimaru and the brother now, and probably more people at, you know, soon, you know, are sort of getting this ability of the Tao, learning to control it, and then getting these powers, right? but it is like how skilled are they, right? Like, you know, because the Tensen have been messing with this stuff forever, really. Like, you know, they're like the slivers of gods, right? But they, you know, they do have a weakness, so I guess that's something. And they're not really immortal. They just have crazy regenerative powers, which when you master the Tao in your body, you know, I guess you kind of have that too. So yeah. But there's not really very many of them. You know, I think that's the problem too, where there are, you know, what is there, seven Tensen? I don't think there's. I don't know. I'm just very interested to see who else does all the crazy Tao stuff, because if it's only because like only Gabimaru and the brother, that's only two people. You know what I mean? It's like two people, even if they're on the level of Tensen, two Tensen can't be seven Tensen. That's just, the numbers don't add up. So I'm wondering, like, I mean, we pretty much have our crew, you know, like you know, unless there's people that we just haven't seen in a while, like a long while, we pretty much know everyone else that's alive between the like, sword people and then the criminals. We pretty much know everyone that's here, so are they all gonna master Tao? Like, I just don't see that being possible. You know, I think Gabimaru was able to do it because of his whole like shinobi stuff, and then the brother was able to do it because of his like his past, his like approach to things, I suppose. You know, but I don't think everyone else will easily be able to do that. And like, even if they get some of it, you know, they're still not on the same level. So I don't know. It's gonna be weird, but we'll see. Next, Konosuba, An Explosion on This Wonderful World, episode 11. Not too much here. Yeah, not really that much. In the beginning, they run into the rookie slayer, right? It's like a big thing with the episode. You know, a lot. You know, all this episode was them trying to be in the guild, and them just not being good. You know, which yeah, we kind of already saw that. You know, and then we see them looking for the blue-haired archmage, which we believe at one point they do run into them, but we're not sure. And then I was thinking about, you know, because we get into like blue hair, and it's like, ooh, is it Aqua? You know, Aqua from the main show and all that, and but I don't think it can be, you know, because I think at this point Aqua is still like a goddess, and she's still like in the sky or whatever, so it can't be her. But it is interesting that they went blue hair. They could have went any other color and not confused us. You know, that's like a big thing, because they're like, oh, well, if we can get her in our party, then, you know, then we can beat the, you know, the crazy demons out there. You know, get the reward. But yeah, I don't think we ever really find them. And then towards the end, we do have that the one demon who we see was, I suppose, agreed to be the familiar of Megumin's little sister. I don't remember her name. So that's, you know, that's hilarious that you know, that little like B plot, or like even like C plot, has kind of followed us through the show. You know, because we did see that many episodes ago, where they kind of met each other, and then like, you know, I think the sister like found something, whatever, and like, you know, they were trying to, you know, and clearly the you know, the demon was trying to use her, but like, you know, the sister's just like a child, so it's like she couldn't really do exactly what he wanted. He's getting like frustrated, you know. So it's funny that kind of followed us through, where it's like, hey, you kind of look like the girl that that I've been working with. It's like, oh really? Interesting. Um, and that demon wants Chomsky. Chomsky, that's also another really funny like character thing that's followed us throughout the whole show. Is that Chomsky is actually the like most powerful, most powerful being in the entire show. Like everyone is after the cat. They don't end up giving them up though. You know, we don't really get a conclusion. Next episode is our last episode with this. But it's just funny where it's like, what's everyone want with this cat? And it's also funny because like the cat being so powerful is like, oh, you know, that's a good joke. But then also, the cat hasn't done anything. You know? Like, it'd be cool if next episode we see the cat do something. It's like, oh, the cat is powerful. You know, but up to this point, the cat's done nothing. The cat just acted like a cat the whole time. It's like, why is everyone after this cat? But yeah, so. Like I said, not really too much happened. No, they didn't really do a whole lot. Just kind of having problems with being in the guild. And, you know, I feel like mostly set up for the final episode where we'll see their decision with the demon, with Chomsky. And then we'll also get another big, like, meta question answered as well, where it's like, how much of this show is left, you know? Because obviously this is a prequel, and, you know, I feel like one of our big questions is, where is this ending? You know, like, is it only going to be one season, and are we going to see them kind of end this and then get to the like main show, right? Or is it gonna be more? Are they kind of planning on like, you know, this like vague, like, oh, I don't know, there could be more, but we'll see. I don't know. Next we have My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999, episode 11. Yeah, so this is a cool episode. I think might be one more episode of this left. I think maybe. Yeah, this one was cool because this was basically the big introduction of Tsubaki, and also we got some more Eita stuff in there as well, and Momo. You know, I feel like it's always a treat whenever we see Momo because she is like the friend, you know, the like one like maybe child. No, I don't think she's a childhood friend. I think they met in college, I think. But that's always cool when we see her. So yes, we did see the, you know, Eita introduces Akane to Tsubaki, and you know they play the game. It's very, very funny. They you know, they face a boss with 4 bars of HP. That's all good and dandy. More importantly, like I said, it's the introduction of Tsubaki, and we do see some more of her character. You know, we do see some of the layers being peeled back of like, oh yeah, she only did this because she wanted to get close to Yamada. But you know, I feel like we talked about this with many different shows many times before, but it is the like main character effect, right? Where it's like, on paper, Tsubaki should hate Akane and should see her as a rival, you know, because clearly she's the one that Yamada has talked about. You know, they've obviously spent a lot more time together than she has with Yamada, but you know, just the way Akane is, kind of makes it hard to do that. You know, just how nice she is, and how, I don't know, just how like human she is, you know, and how like she doesn't seem to have these like weird underlying motives like other people might. So yeah, and then you know, kind of by the end of it, you don't get the energy of like Tsubaki being jealous or like Tsubaki being like hateful or anything like that. It's more so just like reflective, and she like maybe wants to be her friend. It's like, oh man, I kind of had this idea and I'm thinking about it, and I've talked with her and done stuff together or whatever, and it's just like I can't really hate her. So again, that's this is the whole like um main character effect, I suppose. um and then we have the back half where, like I said, we see Momo and Akane, and they get ambushed by a couple of guys. Very terrible. You always look at that, and there are other instances of this in other shows this week. It's just like, when when does this ever work? You know what I mean? Like, for for those two guys, have they done this before, and has it worked for them? where the girls are like, oh yeah, this is the situation that I want. This is what I was hoping happened to me today. And we walked into the cafe or whatever. It's crazy. But Eita does save them, and that's one reason I love Eita, is because he is ride or die for the people that he cares about. We've seen it before in the show, but like, for him to care so much, for him to immediately pick up on the situation, and for him to be like very politely, because he has an employee there, he has a worker, so he can't really go off on them. For him to just be like, you are, what does he say? Like, you're inconveniencing our guests, and I like appreciate you moving to another table or something like that. It's just like, yeah, like they clearly like, and also it's just like, do they just have no self-awareness? Like, obviously they don't have a lot of self-awareness because they put themselves in this position, but you have none at all. For you to like, you're talking, and like, I don't know, I feel like you can see and feel someone's like energy, like their body language and all that, when you're talking to them. So like, they couldn't see that Momo and Akane clearly did not want you there, or maybe they did and they just didn't care, and they were like, we're gonna make them love us. Just like, what are you doing? This is not the move. It's crazy. Yeah, and then we have a crazy cliffhanger at the end where Akane says that she wants to talk to Eita about something. This is where the predictions start. Okay, this is where we start getting the predictions. So, to me, there's really only two possibilities. One has to do with Akane directly. I feel like maybe she's gonna talk to Eita about Yamada, and not necessarily like confess her love to Yamada, but maybe something like in that realm, where it's like sort of like beating around the bush. It's like, oh, maybe just like asking more about Yamada, kind of more about his life, that that sort of thing, and kind of like insinuates certain things about her feelings. That'd be cool. Especially like I said, I think there's one episode left, maybe 2 episodes, but I believe there's only 1 left. So that would kind of make sense for kind of teeing up a final episode this season. Or something that I feel like kind of got introduced, pretty heavily this episode, was maybe Akane also picked up on it, or maybe Akane and Momo were talking, because they did say that they were kind of waiting for him, right? Like, outside the cafe to kind of catch up with him. So I'm sure they had time to talk about whatever. So maybe Momo, maybe Akane wants to talk to Eita about Momo, because we kind of see indication that Momo has a fondness for Eita, so maybe Akane kind of being that like intermediate person like, hey, so what do you think about Momo? You know, she's probably not gonna say it like that, but you know, just sort of like gauging that and being like, oh, you know, Momo kind of, you know, so maybe something like that. I mean, the only other option I can see, but I feel like it'd be less impactful, would be asking about Eita themselves, like maybe for some reason, because Eita kind of swooped in and maybe Akane wants to know more about him, and I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. Like, you know, to me, them ending the episode with that, it's got to be something crazy. And to me, the like craziest outcome would be her sort of pushing on the whole Yamada thing. So that's what I believe. Especially, you know, because like I said, I'm pretty sure next episode is the final episode of the season. So it has to relate to that. It's got to be a final episode of the season has to hit in a way that the other episodes haven't, you know, like something big has to happen. You know, like if let's say next episode is last episode, it can't just be, oh, we're hanging out again and we're doing stuff. Like, it's gotta be something good. Now I don't know that necessarily it'll end with a real confession, you know, because to me, I definitely talked about this before, but it's like these sort of like romance shows, they normally don't last very long, and if they do, it's usually not very good. You know, they don't usually last very long past the two people getting together. You know, because the show, the entertainment is them kind of playing this weird like cat and mouse game, right? You know, so I feel like if there was like a full-on confession, I don't know that we get another season, because it's like, well, now what's the show gonna be? You know, I think they have it in them. I think these characters are interesting enough, and their dynamic is pretty cool. You know, something they could do another season with them like together, but I don't know. Seems like that's probably not what they're gonna do, but we'll see. We'll see. Next, we got Skip and Loafer, episode 11. Next episode is definitely the last one. I do remember seeing that. It's gonna be quite the last episode, I feel like. But so they're at the the festival. The play is a hit, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so this episode is a lot of it's a lot of Mitsumi sort of reflecting on really everything. It's definitely a lot of that. So like with Yuzuki, we see that she gets hit on a lot, but she just wants to show off her art, you know. So so that's a very cool thing to kind of add on to her character, because she is kind of seen as this like super popular, super sought after girl in school, and so it makes sense that she's hit on all the time, but I like that it's sort of in this setting of like, no, I'm like super serious about my art. Like that's something that, she even says like, oh, I poured my heart and soul into this piece, but none of the guys really like look at it. They just kind of glance at it, say, oh, this is cool. Anyway, what are you doing later today? And she's just like, no, this is like, what? Like, this is not the place to do this, I have my blood, sweat, and tears on the wall right here, and you're just kind of tossing it aside. That's not, that doesn't make me want to be like, oh yeah, let's go do, like, no. It was a cool thing to kind of see, right? Because in hindsight, we expect that happens all the time, unfortunately, but for it to happen here, for her to be so distraught over it, and to be like, this is this is not the focus of today. Um, it's nice. It's nice. You know, and then we get shifting from Yuzuki to the other friend Makoto, and I love the little interaction here with her character because she comes in with her two friends. She's two friends from like middle school or whatever, and they come in, and Yuzuki is like super upbeat, super like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? How'd you meet Makoto and all that? And you can tell that she's like a little overbearing, very reminiscent of how she was when she and Makoto first met and they started to kind of get close. They're in the same friend group and whatever. And so, I think Yuzuki kind of sees that, maybe not like making the connection to like Makoto or whatever, but sort of seeing that because generally I feel like Yuzuki is pretty perceptive of these things. I mean, she was perceptive enough to have like a very real conversation with, with Makoto about this of like, we like flash back to it where it's like, you don't have to force yourself, or hey, I think there's even a conversation where she was like, you don't have to be my friend, and like not in a harsh way, but just like, hey, if I don't like match with you, like we don't have to be like super close friends or whatever, like it's fine. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, basically, right? But then the great thing happens where Makoto kind of sees this and she sort of gets those like flashbacks. And so she wants to bring them together because, I think in her mind, she's like, oh, I could have just, I could have just stayed in my lane and been like, nah, Yuzuki, this girl isn't really for me. Like, our personalities don't really match. Where it doesn't really work out, right? But if I did that, I would never gotten closer to her. Now she's like one of my closest friends. Just in general, I've met her. I've met Mitsumi. I've met Mika. All these different people, and so I think she sees that. She's like, no, I want to kind of bridge the gap and bring my two friends closer. Well, she has two middle school friends, and then Yuzuki. And so a great thing happens where she rushes over. She's like, she shows her two friends, her painting, and she starts getting super in detail about it. And then she starts like asking questions about Yuzuki's dog, and you can see Yuzuki like smile, like she kind of understands what she's doing and she very much appreciates it. So again, her kind of bridging that gap, I think it was a great moment. I think it shows so much growth on her character from when we first met her in like episode 3 or something. So that was probably like my favorite moment of this entire episode, was just that kind of going through her head and her having the idea of like rushing over and being like, hey, so Yuzuki, Yuzuki reads, a lot of the same books that I do, and so I lend her books, and she always reads them immediately and gives them back, and we talk about it. And then also she's like super into art, and like she actually painted this over here. This is her dog, and her dog is like her favorite thing in the world. And oh yeah, I've always been meaning to ask, what kind of breed is your dog? And then she's just like super, getting super into it, and and then also kind of in a way I feel like if you read between the lines, she is showing her appreciation for Yuzuki as a friend. Something that she may have struggled with in the past, and then glances over at Yuzuki, and then Yuzuki understands this and smiles and is like, oh yeah, and then answers the question. I think she's like some kind of terrier or something. But it's just like that moment I think hits super hard. And yeah, I just had to note that I like super like this friend group. I think it's great. I think they all have like different personalities that mesh well together when they're all in the same room together. They make some time to just spend time with just them for, between the responsibilities of the festival, and you can just tell that they're super comfortable with each other. It's great. And then we have sort of the back half of the episode where Shima's little brother gets lost. And I really like this part too because, I always like whenever we see more stuff with Shima. Because obviously he's the character that we don't see much about because he is super private about his life and all that. But, him kind of not thinking that his little brother would be excited to see him, or like not even really sure if his brother loves him, is like so telling of his character. Like not sure, like even before that, like, when he was when he was at the zoo with Mitsumi and wanted to buy something for him. It was like, didn't know what to buy him, and then finally got him something, and then was going to give it to, he was just going to give it to Mitsumi, be like, he probably doesn't want this anyway, and then Mitsumi's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're his older brother, like, you give him anything, and I'm sure he'd love it because it's coming from you. That's like super indicative of his character, because then we move on through the episode and they meet, Shima, finds the brother with the, with his classmates or whatever. And his little brother just like starts crying and like runs to him and embraces him, and it really hits Shima. It's just like, you are an idiot. Like you really thought that you were gonna go see him and he was gonna be like, he should like scoff at you or something. Like, no, he immediately ran towards you and was like, oh my god. And he's kind of going back in his head, and he's realizing that his little brother like was never like avoiding him. He was just trying to be considerate of him. And then he realizes that he was the same way when he was a kid, the same exact way. And so everything starts to connect, and then it's just like this, this great bond that is formed in this moment. And he picks him up and he's like, hey, why don't we go wait for mom outside? And he's just like, yeah. It's just, it's great, because, I think it works both ways, where on Shima's end, he got confirmation that, again, it sounds weird, it sounds kind of harsh, but he got confirmation that like his brother loves him. But then on the little brother's end, like, he finally got to be close with him, like, physically, and Shima like acknowledged him and talked to him and wanted to be with him and all that stuff. So, I think both of them are maybe sort of thinking the same thing. They're both kind of distant from each other, and so for this moment to happen, and it'd be like, oh no, we're like brothers. That's what we are. It was awesome. And then again, the same way that most second to last episodes happen, we have a nice little cliffhanger at the end where Shima's mom and Ririka cross paths, and you can tell that they're both very surprised at seeing the other one in this moment. I can't wait. I can't wait for next episode. Again, I don't know if we're getting another season of this. I think easily we could get another season of this, and I really hope we do. But just next episode, I mean, the mom and Ririka, I think this little encounter is going to be huge. Huge. But then other than that, like, I don't really know how they close out the season. But I'm very excited. This is definitely one of my favorite shows, if not my favorite show of the season. So, very, very excited. Next, we got Heavenly Delusion, episode 12. This was terrible. This was an awful episode. So, it's just like, there's so many things that happen, There's so many things that happen. And we're just like, why? So the very beginning, we have the robot being like, do you want to go outside of the outside? Something that people have been very excited about for a while. And I said, yes, okay, let the test begin. And then it cuts, and then we just like wake up. And it's like, so I don't understand. And then we're gonna flash forward a little bit in the episode to where the orphanage is being attacked, right? Just attacked. And so now I'm thinking, because the very beginning, it opens up that way, and they wake up and it's like, oh, that was a weird dream. And it's like, was it a dream though? Because what, like, is this the test? Like, do you want to go outside of the outside? How do we do that? We just destroy everything, the robots have finally taken over. So like, are those things connected? It's like, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on in this orphanage place. So many questions. And then other than that, we have Kiriko and Maru. And it's great because they have an appointment with Robin. Robin, I forgot who the character was, but I remember that Robin was just kind of like their like friend. I don't really remember. They're like friend of some sort. Maybe they're like somewhat of like a father figure, like an uncle figure or something like that, right? Back before all of this, back before the events of the show. It's great, right? We see him. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be awesome. As a character that we knew from back then. And then we learn that Robin is a huge creep, and that is to put it super lightly. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, I didn't see it until it was way too late. I'm sure the people watching this were like, have like the red flags just like coming out. But like for me, it was like, oh, this is cool. Kind of mean. I'm just cool, And then I think it probably started with me when he suggested that Kiriko go and take a bath. I was like, oh, okay. It's kind of like a very abrupt like stop to their conversation, but then I was like, oh, whatever. He's like, oh, don't worry about it, we can talk later. And in my mind I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense though, because it's like, hey, it's been a long day, we just reunited. I'm sure you have way more questions that you've already asked. Love to catch up, love to, you being here is amazing. And it's like, why don't you take a bath, why don't we chill, why don't we, maybe even like call it a day. Like, I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere, it's all good, right? I was like, okay, that's cool. But then, like, her taking a bath and her coming out and be like, oh, my clothes are gone. Immediately, I was like, oh no. Oh no. Didn't know exactly what we were in store for, but I had the feeling of like, oh no, wait. This is weird. What's happening? Honestly, I was expecting, a little before this, when he's like, oh, I'll go take a bath, and he was walking away, he had this kind of weird energy, and like, I thought, and again, I didn't think what we were getting is what we were actually going to get, but I thought in that moment, it's like, oh, he's going to like run away or something, like there's like something about her, there's like some secret or something that he's like, oh, go and take a bath, and while she's distracted, I'm going to hightail it out of here. But no clothes. Comes in, has the creepy smile, and I'm like, oh, yep, this is happening. This is terrible. And this weird like obsession with like, are you the boy or the girl? Just like, what is happening? Like, I don't. What is this? He's like, oh, you gotta save your sister. What? Look, watch what terrible thing is about to happen to her. Don't you want to save her? It's like, what is this weird like third person, like why are you speaking about yourself in the third person? But yeah, and it's just like, the show does a really good job of like splicing things together, something at the very end here. I think we have one more episode of this as well. Where they're kind of splicing between this terrible thing that's happening, between the weird like melancholy of Maru just kind of chilling in like their apartment or whatever, and then the like confusion, but also somewhat like what's the word I'm looking for? Wonder, I guess, of some of the kids in the orphanage and like what's happening around them, but also like what they could be going towards. They really did kind of, again, a very second to last episode thing to do, is to put all of our main characters in a position where you're like, I want to know more. You know, I mean, even like Maru, where it's like, well, not really anything's happening with him. It's like, sure, but him being all alone, him having this time to think, and then him also like not being with Kiriko in this moment, like what's gonna happen there. You know, obviously my biggest thing is with Kiriko and like, you know, who's gonna save her, or him, I guess, you know. It's just awful, just terrible, you know. I hope he dies. I hope he dies next episode. I want it so much, but we'll see, you know. Next, Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village Arc episode 10. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't feel like there's a whole lot to talk about because I feel like it's just like a lot of action, a lot of really good action, but just not really a whole lot to dive deep into. Mitsuri is really, really good. You know, the more we're seeing of her, the more fan I am of her. You know, because at the beginning it's like, oh, her character design is really what made her popular, right? But the more we see her, I'm like, oh no, her fighting is crazy. You know, I love her like technique, I guess. Her like weird like whip lasso sword is crazy. But then also, I also really like her personality as well. You know, I like her backstory where she's super strong and she eats a lot, but you know that caused her a lot of anxiety and a lot of like uncertainty with where her life is, because she's like, oh, I'm not really like other girls, you know. And she even tried to change herself. She like dyed her hair. She stopped eating. She started to act really weak, and that started to get her like possible suitors, right? But then she was like, I can't. You know, obviously we know at some point she's like, I can't do this. Like this is not me. Her parents were ride or die, which I very much appreciated. You know, I mean, you know, when she was you know, awake at night, she was like, oh, what am I gonna do? And her dad is like, you can just live here with us forever. And she's like, yeah, but aren't girls supposed to like grow up and get married and have a family? And he's just like, you could just live here forever. And like, on one hand, it's not very encouraging, where it's like, you should maybe, you know, try to push your kids to do, you know, something, right? But, you know, I do like where he's not super hard the other way, where he's not like, yeah, you're a loser. You should change everything about yourself. Like, no. And then, you know, even when she's kind of dyeing her hair, you know, you can see the parents kind of peeking in, and they're very worried, and they're like, whoa, this is not our child. You know, she's going through something. So that was cool. And then in that moment, for it to kind of end the flashback and her be like, I don't know if I'll ever be loved by anybody. And then for it to end the flashback and Tanjiro, Genya, and Nezuko all kind of shove her out of the way from being destroyed by this demon. And her realizing, oh, I do have people around me that genuinely care about me, is great. Another thing to note, she does have a mark as well. She has a mark on her like her collar bone, I guess. And so that, you know, that's something they're really pushing this season. I feel like we didn't see it too much in the first couple seasons, you know, aside from like Tanjiro, I guess. But now, aside from Tanjiro, we have multiple Hashira that have marks now, and I'm not really sure what they're for. It's funny because, you know, this very much reminds me of Naruto, where very early on in Naruto, Sasuke, one of the main characters, he gets a curse mark. It has to do with, like, you know, it gives him like certain powers, but it's also cursed. You know, there's a lot of different things there. So it kind of reminded me of that, where it's like, what do these marks mean? What's going on? Because it seems like every time someone goes crazy, the mark appears or grows. So there's some connection there. There is something that they're building to with that, but I just don't quite know what it is yet. And then but yeah, that's pretty much everything. We do kind of end the episode with them closing in on the main demon's body. You know, they're getting real close to killing them, because they're like, at the end of the day, that is the main, like we have to kill that one to take out all the rest. So yeah, again, not really too much, just because it was mostly action, and like it's hard to break down action, but at least for me. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, I really you know, as the episodes go on, I'm falling in love more and more with the, you know, with the Mitsuri character. You know, the little backstory we got of her, which definitely added a lot of depth to her character. And also just like her like fighting style is super cool. So yeah, excited. I think we have 2 more. Actually, I have no idea. I don't know how many episodes this season is. I don't even know if this is 1 cour. It could very well be 2 cours. I have no idea. You know, I mean, it definitely feels like we are closing in on the end of this fight, though. But we'll see. Next, Mobile Suit Gundam, Wish for Mercury, Season 2, Episode 9. Yeah, this one is tough. This one's definitely tough. So they're all trapped in school. You know, because that, you don't want to let them leave because of, you know, whatever, their possible involvement with all this stuff. You know, they're handing out tomatoes. You know, Suleta is trying her best to kind of help people, you know, as much as she can, you know. And again, I love the, you know, even the like symbolic nature of the tomatoes, to be like, oh, she took all these and, you know, put them in cold storage, and then she's handing them out to kind of make people feel better, especially just like something different than eating all like the, you know, like rations and stuff that they're eating. Just like even that small gesture is like super impactful. So I really like that she's kind of keeping herself busy. You know, and then meanwhile we cut to Miorine, and she's like the complete opposite, where she blames herself for everything. Which, you know, I think partly she's definitely to blame, but I think partly she's definitely not to blame, where it's like, all of this did not happen because of you. You know, you're giving yourself way too much credit. Like, Prospera has been like puppet mastering this thing for years, you know. So like you are not the mastermind behind all of this death and destruction, like, you know. And a part of that, which I wasn't really expecting, but Shadiq, he does admit that this was all his plan. You know, like I was expecting him to kind of talk his way around it, but they do have him in custody, and he does say, "Yep, this was all me. This is what I wanted to happen." All this stuff, you know, they are kind of they're at least trying to turn his character into something good. You know, with him being like, "Hey, I was doing it for my people," you know, and like in a way, you can definitely empathize with like where his feelings come from. You may not like what he's done. You may not like the execution. You know, maybe where we kind of fall off a little bit, but you know, it's interesting to see where his character will go and like what his dynamic will be with Miorina, to see maybe they end up working together, maybe, you know, Prospera goes a little too far, a little too much, and they realize, hey, this is bad. It's very bad. Yeah, and let's see. Speaking of Prospera's little puppet mastery, we have a few things here. They will forcibly intervene on the Benerit group, so we're taking them out, right? They can't be trusted. Gundams are attacking people. They're not, you know, they're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. You know, so now everything that Miorina has been working towards, and Ghoul as well, is about to be destroyed. So like that's a whole nother thing that like just weight on Miorina's shoulders. That's just like this is too much. I can't handle this. Yeah, and then let's see, and then yeah, and then pretty much just the very end of the episode where Suletta kind of spills all the tea, right? Gives up all the information finally to everyone, so that everyone knows what's happening with her. She, you know, she says that she's not her mother's real daughter. She is a like repli child or whatever, repli clone. I don't know. You know, Prospera back in the day, she transferred Ares' biometric code to Ariel, and apparently the whole like data storm thing that she's trying to achieve will help Ares live. You know, so that's basically her being like, hey, you can't reason with her. Like, there is nothing you'll be able to say to her, for her to be like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. I'm gonna cease and desist. You know, like, no, there's nothing you can do. Which is, you know, in a way, you understand it, right? It's Prospera, it's her child. You know, she's done all of this for her kid. But it's like, how many people, how many people have you killed for this? You know what I mean? Like, you know, again, I understand it's your kid. You know, you'd be like, oh, I would murder anyone for my child. It's like, well, where's the line? Where's the line exactly? End of the day, Suletta does agree to pilot the Gundam, which is terrible because, I mean, we're gearing up for Suletta to die, you know? Like, all of the Gundam pilots die. They all fall victim to the same disease, the same, you know, the same stress on the body. The only reason that Suletta hasn't felt any of that is because Eri was able to, like, communicate with the storm in some way. The only one to ever be able to do that, and was able to take the like full brunt of the storm, so that so that Suletta never had to deal with that. So now her going to a different Gundam, it's like she's about to do something she's never done before, and I don't know that piloting one Gundam like that will kill you. But I mean, they're definitely gonna mess around with that idea. I mean, you know they are. And then yeah, Quiet Zero has begun. They took out an entire just like fleet in a matter of like 5 seconds. So much more death, so much more just terrible things that are on Miorina's mind. More things that she could just blame herself for. And yeah, and so right there we see kind of a like taste of what of what the whole Quiet Zero project can do, and just how powerful Prospera has become. And it's just like, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know how we're gonna beat that. At the very end, we see that Ghoul's brother is very upset with Miorine. Ghoul's brother kind of just taking all that on, saying Ghoul's changed. Everything has changed. It's all due to Miorine. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know if Ghoul's brother, what action is he gonna take? Like, now we have this other character that's just like against Miorine. Like what, like how's he gonna factor into everything? So I don't know. But yeah, overall, pretty crazy episode. Again, just don't know what's gonna happen with Suletta. I mean, I just don't think it's a good idea for her to pilot the Gundam. She wants to do anything and everything she can to help people. So that's kind of what she sees this as. But I just don't want to see her die. That'd be very sad. And just see what Miorine does to kind of save face and kind of save her company and still become president. And then Prospera, what ends will she go to? And will this actually end the way she wants it to? You know, I don't know. Next we got Insomniacs After School, episode 10. This one was cool. We don't really get too much, but there are a few things to note. So we do see more of Nakami's childhood. He would always crush the heels of his shoes, and I think this is this little scene, this little flashback, is very, just like perfectly encapsulates his childhood and what kind of brought him to where he is today. Where there's something that we already kind of knew because we've talked about this before. I don't remember who. I think maybe Nakami. I don't know. But see, he would always crush his shoes, and so we have the scene where the like teacher or principal or whoever brings his dad in. It's like, oh, or like calls him or something. I don't know. Talks about like, oh, he's always crushing his shoes, and when I'd tell him to stop, or whatever, and he wouldn't, he wouldn't stop. He's like, oh, he's doing very good in school academically, but aside from that, like, it's not doing so well. And so his dad, kind of brings him home and all that, and his dad is like, what are you doing? Why are you crushing your shoes? Why why can't you just listen to your teacher? Nakami gets very upset at that, and and runs away. Runs off to his room. And in that moment, his dad realizes that, oh, he wasn't doing that to like act out. He wasn't like crushing his shoes to act out. He was doing it because his shoes don't fit. So he literally has to like crush the heel down so that his foot can kind of rest like halfway in the shoe, halfway on the shoe, to like wear the shoes properly, or not properly, but to actually wear the shoes at all. It's like in that moment, it's just like, again, it just kind of perfectly encapsulates it, because it's like he just misunderstood, and like he's dealing with these things that he just kind of has to deal with, and like, he's just, in a way, he was trying to be considerate, where it's like he could have asked his dad for new shoes, but maybe he knew they didn't have the money, or maybe he just didn't want to ask his dad for anything. He just wanted to kind of carry that, and that is also, that kind of sentiment also carries forward, because, in that same breath where his dad is talking about this, he also talks about how, Nakami would always kind of stay up and like cook him dinner because, he would always come home from work late. So he'd always say, because, so there's the little things that Nakami always did, but maybe never got the appreciation for. Again, maybe sometimes caused a misunderstanding, about like who he is and like his personality and all this stuff. And it does kind of, now you see where he is now, where it's like with this whole insomnia thing, it's very similar, where it's like he's very misunderstood. He, kind of comes off as this like, he's distant. He's like asleep in class all the time. He can be irritable, which comes from, not sleeping. So these things where it's like, you all don't really know. You'll just kind of see it from the outside perspective. But if you talk to me and you got to know me, you know that I'm not at all like any of those things. So again, it's kind of showing that this has been true in some sense or another for his entire life. So, let's see. I have this cool moment here where Shiramaru talks about finding something that touches your heart. Kind of embarrassing thing to say, but kind of hits Nakami at home, and you know, I believe that that's very much leading towards what is something that can get close to his heart. It's mockery, clearly. You know, so we'll see that kind of carry forward, I'm sure. And then we get some more backstory with Maguri's older sister, where she still does carry some resentment towards her, you know, because as a child, Maguri was always getting special treatment because of her like health conditions, and then even aside from that, or on top of that, Maguri would many times be very upset, and you know, probably very you know, very aware that people are giving her special treatment. You know, so I feel like from the outside, you could see like, why are you crying? Why are you upset? You don't, you know, everyone is super nice to you and caters to you and everything like that. And you know, as a kid, I can see you getting like super jealous of that, right? Because that's what kids do. But then, if you're actually that kid that's getting special treatment, and you realize it, it's like, oh, people, you know, people might act fake towards you, or like many things in your life aren't real, you know, like even that scene where they were having the race and like clearly she wasn't gonna win, like she was not doing very well, but like everyone like pulled her forward and they pulled her through the finish line and she won the race. It's like, but that's not real, you know, it's not real. Like if I didn't have this health condition, I could, you know, I could actually be a part of things and not be like, not just get the like, oh well, she won the race, everybody, you know, like we know, like hey everyone, slow down, you know, let Maguri stay with the pack, you know, don't run too far ahead of her, you know, we don't want to make her feel bad, you know, that classic scene where that conversation happens and then you peer over and like, you know, Maguri is around the corner listening to everything, and you know, it's just like, it doesn't give you a good feeling, because it's like, oh, they're all like letting me win, and I don't like that, you know. That's not a good feeling, you know. Maybe when, you know, maybe for some kids, I mean, some instances it's good, but when you understand what's happening, it's like, no, everyone everyone do what they're gonna do. You know, I don't want to win this because you all run in slow motion, you know. Again, this, and you know, this applies to everything, not just a race, but you know, so you know, that's what she said. It's like, it's not fair, you know. Why was I born like this? You know, and in a way she might feel like she can never really get close to other people because maybe people are just like nice to her just because of her condition, you know. So again, two very different sides, and yeah, so that's basically it. You know, Maguri's older sister does also talk to Nakami and say that you have this like responsibility now. She's like, oh, what responsibility is that? Obviously, like, you know, very clearly like, oh, you guys like each other. That's definitely a real thing. You know, so good stuff. Good, you know, good little backstories for both our main characters here, and yeah, definitely leading towards the end of the season where we're gonna get some feelings shared. I can already tell. Next, we got Oshi no Ko episode 9. This is a very Memcho centric episode. Yeah. So Memcho is actually 25, not 18. Lying about her age, not super uncommon, especially on like the internet world. Man, 7 years, huh? You lied about it. 7-year difference? Jeez. Oh my gosh. But yeah. But you know, I do really like this scene though, because one, it's funny because it's like 7 years, jeez. But then we have Ruby coming in and being like, I don't care. You're incredible. I'm a big fan of yours. You're awesome. Please join my idol group. We're gonna be amazing. And Memcho's just like, oh my gosh, you accept me, you know. So it's just like, oh, it's awesome. And Memcho is super needed because she does have that online presence that none of the other members have. So she's able to come in, give them a boost to their like YouTube stuff, and it's great. That's something that's very interesting with their group is I feel like each member so far brings something to the table, and that is kind of what they need because they are a budding idol group. They have nothing to go off of. You know what I mean? Strawberry Productions is not a very big production company, and they don't really manage any idol groups at the moment. So it's tough. I mean, they really are starting from the ground up. So, with each member kind of bringing their own little special sauce to the group, I think is very important. Yeah. And so yeah, they get further, and this is really the like huge start to their like idol careers, because obviously they formed and we got Kana and all that stuff, but now it's like, okay, we're doing this because they get to a moment where it's like, oh, we don't have any original songs yet, so we can't really do anything. Memcho has a great idea of like, yeah, but we have all of B Komachi's catalog. Like, we're calling ourselves that. We're the same production company. We can just perform their songs, and that's also really smart because we don't, there are already songs that exist, there are already known songs, which is like covers of them, and it also kind of gets our name out there, right? And then when we get some popularity, get a little bit of buzz, then we can start bringing original songs to the table. It's smart. Unfortunately, they're not good singers. I do like the very end though because Kana not really fighting to be the lead character. Memcho and Ruby very much are, and they go to a karaoke bar, and it's just like neither one of them are good. They were good singers, but they do stumble upon Kana. We see that Kana actually has a history of singing, and she's pretty good. So I wonder if that's, and again, I always say this way too late, but I have read Oshi no Ko. Not all of it, I'm not caught up, but I am definitely past where the show is going to be. Was it like 11 episodes, I think, in the season, so I'm definitely way past that. So no spoilers though, I never give any spoilers of the things I already know because that's not fair, but I don't usually remember everything, and in this moment it's definitely one of those moments where I'm just like, I don't remember what happens. Like, do they realize this and they're like, I'm not a good singer, you're not a good singer? Maybe in the future if we get some lessons and we really like up our game, then one of us can be the like center idol. But in this moment, let's kind of put aside our egos, and we should make Kana the one. Like, she clearly is a better singer than us. She has some experience, clearly. Like, for now at least, we should make her the center. Which is really funny because you can tell that Kana didn't really want it. So if they do go to her and they're like, we want you to do it, she's like, what? I thought you two weren't you two having like this big like war? It's a competition. What happened here? So I can definitely see that happening. Or maybe they go to her just for like lessons, and it's just like, hey, we saw this. Can you teach us can you like help us get better? So I don't know, but I am very excited for this because again, there's only 2 episodes left in the season. But by the end of the season, I would like to see them perform something. I think that's really important. Yeah, and then on Aqua's side of the story, 2 episodes left. I don't really know where we could end with him. So like, what's the last thing we saw of him, right? We saw them doing the show, and then him and Akane have this like fake real relationship. We did see a little bit of him this episode, I believe, where the like director guy told him that shoot, what was it? There was something about like Akane's like production company or the like stage company or something. There was some connection to that, and so that just like falls right into his lap where he's like, that's perfect because I'm dating Akane, so that's the, I have a connection to that, so I'm sure he's gonna chase that. I don't remember what happens with that though, if anything happens with that, like, or even what the connection is really. I think there's like a person there, right? I think that's what the director was saying. There's like some person that may have some connection to that works there or something. So I'm sure he's gonna chase that because that's Aqua's whole deal. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm very excited for the last couple episodes because, again, I don't remember exactly what happens, but I mean this has been pretty solid so far, and I think that on both fronts they are going to have something that's like, caps off the season and makes us excited for hopefully a second season. And lastly, Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible, episode 11. I believe I don't know about this one more episode left. Maybe there's only 12 episodes. I don't know. Yeah, this one was cool. This one was mostly just them two hanging out. Shiraishi and Kubo hanging out all day. Very cool. Very nice stuff. I do like one thing I do like about this episode is that, and just as the season goes on, I feel like there is less and less of the main shtick being Kubo messing with Shiraishi, and it is more so just them kind of hanging out and like doing stuff, and then like kind of peeling back the layers of, especially the Kubo character. I mean, even Shiraishi kind of mentions it or thinks about it this episode where he's like, wow, I've never really seen the side of Kubo before. And it is because they are hanging out more and they are becoming closer, and it isn't just like they're classmates and they're kind of, just kind of hanging out, So some key moments here. We have the train kind of rattling around and Shiraishi gets into a kind of a weird position, gets really close to Kubo. And like just super indicative of his character where he's like doing his best to not like get too close to Kubo because he wants to be respectful of her boundaries, but then also you can tell that that's very painful for him because people can't see him, so they're just kind of moving about and they bump into him pretty hard because they don't see a person there, and so he's not doing very well. But Kubo appreciates this. She's like, wow, he's really going through it for me. So that's really cool. Then we have another moment we talked about this with with the Yamada show. We have three people coming in, just kind of surrounding Kubo and just like, hey, how you doing? Hey, I found this pancake place. And just like, in what scenario? It's the same thing I talked about with the dang Yamada show. It's like, when has this ever worked for you three? When have you guys ever just walked up on a girl, three of you, been like, hey, you want to hang out? And she's been like, well, yes, I do. Oh man, I was hoping a group of guys would just approach me and ask that, and you did. Just like, what are we doing? And like, that's a moment, I do really like this moment too, because this is another moment where, or this is one of the few moments that we see Kubo not like confident or like smug or like kind of in control of the situation, and I also love it because then Shiraishi kind of walks up and like tries to kind of intervene, I guess, and I love it because Kubo rushes to him and like says that this is her boyfriend, and that kind of has them all off or whatever, and they all kind of walk away. But it's a great moment because for her to even say that is like, I'm sure super embarrassing for her, super embarrassing for Shiraishi. Clearly they both like each other, but they're definitely not there. But then also to be in that moment and then both be scared of what can possibly happen, and then for them to get out of the situation by being with each other, it's just like, oh, this is great. And then for them to be there for each other, it's just perfect, Um, let's see. Yeah, they realized this is another crazy thing where it's like they didn't get their tickets in advance, which is nuts. But then it'd be like, for there to be even the possibility of like, well, we can still see it, we just won't sit next to each other. It's like, in what scenario do you go to the movies with someone and be like, I mean, it's cool if we don't sit next to each other. Like, what? what are you saying opposite ends of the theater for? Like, what is even the point? Yeah, so they don't end up doing that, right? They go to a bunch of different places. Let's see. You know, I do relate the scene where they drink coffee together. It's like, oh, you're so adult. It's such an adult drink. And he's like, hey, why don't you get tea instead of coffee? And she's like, no. if you can have coffee, I can have coffee. And she's just like, just so mad. She's, you know, in that moment, she's very much a child, where she's like, oh, you know, Shirashi over here telling me that I can't have coffee. I'm gonna have coffee. If he has coffee, I can have coffee. And she's just like so mad. She's like, guys, and then them meet together in like the store or whatever, and him getting another eraser, and her being like, why don't you get this one? And hands him the bunny eraser. She's like, oh well, you said any eraser. It doesn't matter the style. You said any eraser. And that's funny, you know, because her whole thing is like bunnies, right? Like she's a big bunny fan. So it's like, oh, you want to get a bunny eraser? So that was a cute moment. And then another great thing, which kind of closes out the episode, is you know, her kind of realizing that, her kind of noticing and telling him that, hey, you know, your facial expressions, you had a lot of different like faces when you're watching the movie, which is so weird because, you know, you never really do that anywhere else. And he kind of has this sort of like sad reasoning as to why, where it's like, oh well, people don't ever really notice me, so you know, if I do have different facial expressions or whatever, if I do kind of smile to myself or something, and someone randomly does notice me out of nowhere, then they're gonna think I'm weird for just like smiling to myself or something, you know, because they don't have the context, you know, because they don't ever see me, so they just kind of jump in the middle of my book without reading up until that point, you know, so like they, so that'll make it really hard for me to be approachable, because they'll just randomly see me like smiling to myself or making a face or something, where other people make faces and it's like, oh, it's not weird because I knew you were there the whole time. I can understand the context as to why you're making that face, as to why you're feeling and displaying that emotion. But for me, no one will ever see that or feel that. So that's why I try my hardest to just be like neutral. And then she has a great thing where she's like, yeah, but you don't have to worry about that around me. And it's just like the wave of like relief that hits him is palpable, you know, because it's like he's right, because she does notice you, so it's like you don't have to try your hardest to do that. It's like, oh, I can't just turn it off, and I've done this for years. And she's like, that's fine, but like just know that you don't have to do this, you know, you don't have to be, you don't have to hide anything from me, right? You know. And then even the way it closes out the episode, where it's like, she's like, oh, I want to hang out again. It's like, oh, that's incredible, I want to hang out, you know, promise, do the pinky promise, and that's great. And then him kind of reflecting on the day, and her being like, oh, but I can read you like a book. And then him being like, wait, can she really? And then him thinking about all the different like moments of the day where he had certain emotions, you know, like him on the train, or you know, him you know, like him like watching her drink like the coffee and loving it or whatever. Like, was she, you know, he's like thinking like, was she able to read my thoughts and emotions in those moments? Because if she was, very embarrassing. You know. So yeah, great episode. Like I said, I love the show. And we're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer to a possible moment. I don't know if they're ever going to really confess to each other, but if it happens, it's going to be a great day. And yeah, that is it for this week. Great episodes all the way around. You know, like I said, I'm pretty sure I counted them, and I think there's like 6 of our 11 shows will be ending next week. So, yeah, get ready for that. The finale of 6 of our shows next week. Yeah, and then after that, like I said, like then then many of the other shows I think are the week after that. So, yeah. So we're pretty much gearing up. I mean, the only one that I know for a fact is not ending at that point is Gundam. You know, because that's only on we only covered episode 9 this week, and I think there's 12 episodes. So, you know, because Gundam I think maybe started late, and I think I had like 1 or 2 delays. So that's why we're like still super early. Well, not that early, but it feels really early in the season versus all the other shows. But yeah, we're getting close to like pretty soon. I don't know exactly when, but pretty soon. I'm gonna come out. I'm going to make my preview episode for the summer season, the next season coming up. That's obviously, if you don't know, before every season I come out with a preview episode where I basically talk about all of the different shows that at that moment I am planning on covering for the upcoming season. You know, that way you guys know and you guys can get ready for what shows we're going to cover. You know, sometimes it changes slightly, and obviously as the first couple weeks, 2-3 weeks of the season go on, you know, some shows get picked up, some shows get dropped, all that stuff. But yeah, I'll probably come out with that soon, and I have taken already a little bit of a peek at the upcoming season, and there are definitely some bangers. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, let me know what episodes you enjoyed this week. Let me know which finales you are most excited for. Let me know which shows next season you're most excited for. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time, watch more anime.